Today, I'll be sharing my experience during my Manila Day tour called A Walk Through History. This tour helped me understand how Philippine art, culture, and history shape who we are as Filipinos. As I was walking through the gallery, I noticed one of the most famous Filipino painters, by Juan Luna. He was not only an artist, but also a political activist in the late century. Right in front of me was his masterpiece, Espolarium, completed in 1884. Standing there and looking at Espolarium, I really felt the weight of the painting. You see dead gladiators being dragged across the floor, but it also symbolizes the suffering of Filipinos under Spanish colonial rule. The pain and injustice in the scene made me reflect on what our ancestors went through. Back then, this painting became a symbol of nationalism and pride, a reminder of why freedom and justice mattered. As I walk around the museum, I also look at other artworks. I saw Felix Hidalgo's The Assassination of Governor Bustamante. It shows violence and suffering in a very emotional way. And just like Luna, Hidalgo used history to comment on injustice. Then I compared this to modern art, like Ang Kyu Kok's Men at Work. Even though his style is more abstract, you can still feel the struggle and resilience in his figures. Inside the National Museum of Anthropology, I learned that pre-colonial Filipinos were already skilled and organized. The Hibla ng Lahing Filipino Gallery shows traditional textiles like tinalak, ikat, and yakan weaves, proving that early Filipinos had identity, artistry, and culture. I also saw gold ornaments, balangay boat remains, and different palayok used for cooking, rituals, and trade. These artifacts show that our ancestors had craftsmanship, technology, and social structure long before the Spaniards arrived. After finishing the anthropology section, I headed to the natural history part of the museum. The first thing that caught my eye was the massive tree of life. It's called that because it represents all living things on Earth, like a giant family tree that shows how plants, animals, and humans are all connected. At the entrance, you can see the giant Marinduque sperm whale. Seeing it in person made me realize how big and powerful these creatures really are. In the other part of the room, you can see different animals that we have, or used to have in the Philippines. And of course, there's Lolong, the giant crocodile. He's around 6.17 meters long, and standing next to him just show how massive he really was. Walking through this section made me appreciate how rich and diverse our environment is. And now, nature played a huge role in shaping who we are as Filipinos. Next, Luneta Park. The Rizal Monument is more than just a landmark. It is the heart of our national memory. Its design, standing tall and guarded, symbolize honor, dignity, and the unshakable legacy of Jose Rizal. This site marks where a Filipino was executed by a colonial power, yet transformed into a hero by his own people. The execution diorama captures Rizal's final moments. His calmness and courage in facing death reveal the true meaning of martyrdom. His sacrifice awakened Filipino consciousness, inspiring ordinary people to rise, resist, and eventually fight for freedom. Rizal's death became the spark that ignited the Philippine Revolution. As you can see, the relief map reminds us the broader struggle for independence across the archipelago. It shows how Rizal's ideas and struggles resonated beyond Manila, influencing people in every province to fight for their rights and identity. The Manila Cathedral is a beautiful example of Neo-Romanesque architecture. It has been destroyed and rebuilt many times because of wars and earthquakes, yet it always rises again. Looking closer, even the stained glass windows tells a story. They show scenes of faith and devotion that have endured through generations. This constant rebuilding showed the lasting influence and authority of the Catholic Church during the Spanish rule. The cathedral was more than just a building. It symbolized religion, power, and control. At the same time, it also represents the endurance of faith here in the Philippines, how religion remained a steady presence in people's lives, even through hardship. After exploring the Manila Cathedral and seeing its history of resilience, I am now here at Fort Santiago. This fort served as the military and political stronghold during the Spanish rule. Walking through its walls, dungeons and cells, you can really feel how these spaces were meant to control people and inspire fear. One of the most powerful spots is Jose Rizal prison cell. It's hard not to reflect on how his imprisonment and execution sparked the revolution led by Andres Bonifacio. Every corner of Fort Santiago shows both the power of Spanish rule and the courage and resilience of Filipinos fighting for freedom. At San Agustin Church is the oldest stone church in the Philippines. Inside is the burial site of Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, the founder of Manila. This church represents the beginning of Spanish rule and how religion became central to Filipinos' colonial life. To my final stop, I visited the Museo de Intramuros. It focused on how Filipino artisans respond to colonial religious art, also known as the Indio response. One example I saw was a Santo Niño carving made by local craftsmen. Even though it followed Spanish iconography, the features were clearly Filipino. You can see the rounder face, the brown skin tone, and the use of Malave wood. I also noticed an urna or altar box, where the pattern looked like native motifs rather than European designs. Through these details, I realized how Filipinos didn't just copy a foreign religion. They blended it with local materials, local identity, and their own artistic style, turning Catholic art into something uniquely Filipino. As I reflected on my experience during my Manila Day tour, singing Espolarium by Juan Luna and walking through Fort Santiago for the first time really stuck with me, because both of them show the cruelty, suffering, and bravery of Filipinos during colonial times. As someone who appreciates art, I really felt the heaviness of what the Espolarium symbolized. The scene of the fallen gladiators felt like a symbol of Filipinos who were abused, silenced, and treated unfairly. It honestly felt like a visual reminder of all the pain, injustice, and oppression our ancestors had to go through. Seeing these places in person made a history feel alive and closer to me. It wasn't just dates or facts anymore. It felt like personal. It made me understand that our identity as Filipinos was built through both pain and courage. And it reminded me that we should never forget the stories behind our freedom.